Netanyahu last Thursday and President Abbas last Tuesday. A two-state solution is humanity's best hope to break the cycle of violence in the Middle East and to bring an end to the conflict, suffering and starvation in Gaza. The international community's vision for a just and lasting peace in the Middle East always encompassed two states living side by side with internationally recognised borders, a state of Israel and a state of Palestine, with security for the people of both nations. This is the plan Australia was the first member of the United Nations to vote for back in 1947, when we proudly supported the creation of the modern State of Israel as a state for the Jewish people alongside a state for the Palestinian people. And that is why, when we recognise the long-held and legitimate aspirations of the people of Palestine, we are also upholding and strengthening our commitment to the people of Israel and their right to live in freedom, security and safety. Because until Israeli and Palestinian statehood is permanent, peace can only be temporary. Ever since the atrocities perpetrated by Hamas on the 7th of October 2023, Australia has stood with the people of Israel and our partners and allies around the world in calling for the release of the hostages. For the sake of their loved ones and all who share in their pain, we repeat that call today. Our government has made it clear that there can be no role for the terrorists of Hamas in any future Palestinian state. This is one of the commitments Australia has sought and received from President Abbas and the Palestinian Authority. The Palestinian Authority has reaffirmed it recognises Israel's right to exist in peace and security. It has committed to demilitarise and to hold general elections. It has pledged to abolish the system of payments to the families of prisoners and martyrs, and promised broader reform of governance, financial transparency in the education system, including international oversight to guard against the incitement of violence and hatred. These detailed and significant commitments have been given even greater weight by the Arab League's unprecedented demand for Hamas to end its rule in Gaza and surrender its weapons to the Palestinian Authority. This is an opportunity to deliver self-determination for the people of Palestine in a way that isolates Hamas, disarms it and drives it out of the region once and for all. The international community is moving to establish a Palestinian state, and it is opposing actions which undermine the two-state solution. The Netanyahu government is rapidly expanding illegal settlements. Settler violence in the West Bank has increased. There have been threats to annex the occupied Palestinian territories and proposing the permanent forced displacement of the Palestinian people. These actions, together with the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza, risk putting a two-state solution out of reach for a generation. I've said it publicly and I said it directly to Prime Minister Netanyahu. The situation in Gaza has gone beyond the world's worst fears. Far too many innocent lives have been lost. The Israeli government continues to defy international law and deny sufficient aid, food and water to desperate people, including children. This vital aid must be allowed to get to the people who need it most. This is about much more than drawing a line on a map. This is about delivering a lifeline to the people of Gaza. I understand that on this issue, history casts a long shadow. Every generation has known failures and false dawns. Yet the story of this struggle is also one of opportunities not taken. That is where the risk of trying is nothing compared to the danger of letting this moment pass us by. The toll of the status quo is growing by the day, and it can be measured in innocent lives. The world cannot wait for success to be guaranteed. That only means waiting for a day that will never come. There is a moment of opportunity here, and Australia will work with the international community to seize it. I invite Minister Wong to make some remarks and then we'll take questions.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Well, it's been more than 77 years since the world promised a Palestinian state, knowing that there cannot be lasting peace for both peoples without a two-state solution. And in the nearly 2 years since October 7, we have been working with the international community on breaking the cycle of violence that the Middle East has known for generations. Across the world, nations have agreed that we cannot keep doing the same thing and hoping for a different outcome. We can't keep waiting for the end of a peace process that has ground to a halt. So last April, our government started a conversation with the Australian people about changing Australia's approach. We made clear we would recognise Palestine when it would best contribute momentum to peace. September is that time. When the world says this has gone on far too long. When the world says the heartbreak, death and destruction must end. The world watched in horror the attacks by Hamas on October 7, the worst loss of Jewish lives on a single day since the Holocaust. Hostages are still cruelly held, and we want them all released and reunited with their families and loved ones. And the world has watched in horror since, as tens of thousands of Palestinian civilians are killed, thousands starving, the faces of children we cannot forget. Australians, people around the world, have been haunted by these images. We have always said that Palestinian civilians cannot be made to pay the price of defeating Hamas. But a whole population has been shattered. So this September, the international community has the chance to forge hope from despair as the world seizes the opportunities that are presented by the new commitments of the Palestinian Authority, and as the world seeks to support the Arab League's efforts to isolate Hamas. The Netanyahu government has ignored international opposition to its conduct of the war in Gaza. It's ignored international opposition to rapidly expanding illegal settlements that are extinguishing the prospect of two-state solution. And we know that two states is the key. It is the key to a just peace for Israelis and Palestinians alike. We also know this is not the end. It is just the beginning. There is much more work to do in building the Palestinian state. We will help build the capacity of the Palestinian Authority, and with the international community, Australia will hold the Palestinian Authority to its commitments. The practical implementation of our recognition will be tied to progress on these commitments. We will continue to provide humanitarian aid with our partners to try and help vulnerable civilians to get basic supplies they need, and we will work with partners to build a pathway out of the cycle of violence to a peace that is enduring and is just, with recognition of each other's right to exist, recognition by the countries of the region, two states, Israel and Palestine.
Andrew. Hamas don't support two states. Hamas support one state, in their words, from the river to the sea. Hamas do not support recognising the right of Israel to exist. This is an opportunity to isolate Hamas that has been forged by the very clear statements of the Palestinian Authority on June 10 and the very clear statements of the Arab League. Paul?
Just on that call with the Israeli leader, did he warn you against this? Can you give us an explanation of the tone of that call? And just on the PA, just briefly, you mentioned a bunch of conditions that you say you've secured. How much of them were briefed to you by Mahmoud Abbas versus his assurances given to the French president? Are any of the new conditions briefed to you in the call last week?
Well, they were. It wasn't just a call, there was follow-up to that. And the conditions are ones that are consistent with the declaration in June, that recognition of the State of Israel, which of course the Palestinian Authority would argue had occurred with the Oslo Accords, but also I think new and important statements, demilitarisation of any future Palestinian state, the potential role for international forces in security, the reform of governance, including of education, as well as a call for elections, the isolation and opposition to Hamas playing any role in a future Palestinian state, the discussion that I had with Prime Minister Netanyahu was one which was a civil discussion, and I thank him for the conversation that we had. It was a long discussion in the context of leaders' discussions can often be pretty brief, but we had an opportunity. I was able to say that the arguments that he put to me were very similar to the arguments that he put more than a year ago. It seems to me very clearly, and I put the argument to him, that we need a political solution, not a military one, because a military response alone has seen the devastation in Gaza, and that has contributed to the massive concern that we see from the international community, not just from leaders, but from community members, at the catastrophe that we are witnessing in Gaza. Katina? Prime Minister Netanyahu put arguments to me that, consistent with what he has made internationally as well, publicly. I put arguments which are consistent with what I have said publicly over a long period of time as well.
Yes, I spoke to Secretary Rubio ahead of the announcement, and as a matter of diplomatic courtesy, advised him of our intention to announce.
Yep.
On the Rubio phone call, did you get assurances that our decision on this will not affect the rest of the bilateral relationship with the US, given the Trump administration's opposition, not expecting any blowback on things like trade or AUKUS or anything else?
We speak for Australia and we make our sovereign decisions, but you will see from the readout, I think, that the State Department have issued since the call. We spoke about a range of matters, including the Indo-Pacific and security in the Indo-Pacific, and I think you can discern from that that the project that we are engaged in with the United States and others, which is peace, stability and security in our region, is something we both remain very committed to.
We'll go 1, 2, 3, and then we'll go over that side.
Just on the conditionality that you expressed, Palestinian Authority, can you just clarify or explain where you're at on the release of the hostages and ceasefire itself?
Well, we want to see the hostages released. We want to see the hostages never taken. I mean, my heart goes out to the families of those who are impacted by this. We want to see as well an immediate ceasefire. I think Australians want two things. I've said this before very clearly. They want the killing to stop. They want peace and security in the Middle East. They know this is a complex issue, but they also know that the violence has gone on for far too long. And the second thing they want is that they do not want conflict brought here to Australia. They want a harmonious community, which is what we have. Yep, here. Yep, true. This is a practical contribution towards building momentum. This is not Australia acting alone. What we are seeing is a range of countries engaging in detailed dialogue as well, behind the scenes, if you like, talking about what a peace looks like in the region. And it's something that had an impact on the world. This conflict, which has gone on for such a long period of time, I think Australians want to see an end to it. And an end to it can only be secured when both Israelis and Palestinians can live in peace and security. Okay?
First, in response to that, as I said in my opening statement, is that we will tie the various practical steps towards recognition, you referenced some, not all, to the Palestinian Authority's commitments and the ensuring that those indeed take place and the other actions of the international community. Can I just make this point in response to an earlier question? We have an opportunity as a nation to contribute to momentum towards two states, and that is the only prospect for peace.
Anna. Well, Prime Minister Netanyahu foreshadowed the announcements that have been made over the last couple of days as well. I, of course, expressed my concern with such a direction that the Netanyahu government was determined to go in. And certainly I think that I expressed it in a very clear way, but the Prime Minister's comments were similar to what he had made a year ago, which is that they were determined to remove Hamas. I, of course, indicated our complete abhorrence of the existence of Hamas and our complete opposition to Hamas as a terrorist organisation having any future role in a Palestinian state.
Well, the US obviously has a unique role in the world, and we support President Trump's work to attain a ceasefire for hostage release and for humanitarian relief. Australia has an opportunity now, as I've said, to contribute to the momentum towards two states, which is the way in which the cycle of violence can be broken. In relation to ceasefire on the ground, I would make the point that the Israeli Security Cabinet's decision to launch a large-scale offensive into Gaza is counter to the prospect of a ceasefire.
Yep, so just take a few more. We'd like to see it happen as soon as possible, but we are that is one of the issues that will be debated going forward. It's a part of the reform of the Palestinian Authority, which is required. The PA have not had an election for some time. And when Hamas took over Gaza, of course, there was violence by Hamas against Palestinians as well. I do want to make this point. Hamas is not just an enemy of Israelis, it's an enemy of the Palestinian people as well. And their actions, including during the current conflict, where opposition to Hamas has been met with brutality, is recognised by not just by Australia but by the international community. Anna?
Those are all matters we would want to work with the international community on, and I think I can safely say that, given how much we've engaged with some of the countries that you referenced, that we are of very similar mind in terms of ensuring that there is progress on the commitments that you've outlined.
Phil, to bring it home.
Our expectation is the international community will work with all parties to ensure not only that those commitments are adhered to, but there is progress towards two states. Again, I repeat, there is no sustained peace unless we see a two-state solution. I think we all know that.
Phil. Not at all. I think that one of the key moments, if you like, when people will look at how we've got to where we are today, will be not just June 10, the statement by the Palestinian Authority, but importantly the statement by Arab nations, which was very historic. The meeting convened by France and Saudi Arabia in New York produced very clear and unequivocal statements of opposition to Hamas, of disarming of Hamas, and of Hamas not playing a future role. Thanks very much.